The new channel. The new channel. Hashtag TNC Now.
The views, opinions, and insights expressed in the following shows are those of the host, producers, guests, and viewers. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the new channel. Our passion transforms a community that sees all things new. I am Joseph Sylvester, and I'm streaming live from Parañaque City. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Metaverse, Breaking the Fourth Wall on TNC. All right. Okay, so hey, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's episode. It's going to be a special one today because I built out a lot of things for this episode. It's going to be very factual, coming from a standpoint of actual data. Okay, so we're going to discuss the metaverse and how it has come a long way. Okay, today's show, I will break it down into two parts. For the first part, I will present some data that will have some impact to those of you entering the blockchain space, specifically for the metaverse. But when we talk about metaverse, you can it's usually associated with blockchains and NFTs, but metaverse in general. Okay. Now, we'll cover topics. If we can share my screen, please. All right. So we'll cover topics in relation to blockchain projects out there. Like direction a project should take, possible markets, finding the markets, and what users look for when they invest into a metaverse project. Okay, and we'll discuss other things such as experiences that the users want on the metaverse. And then again, after the break, we'll enter a live metaverse that I have prepared for this show. Okay, so let's move on. Before we go into today's episode, I just want to make sure that we have somewhat of a general definition of what a metaverse is. Okay, now I know we talked about this metaverse thing a couple times in the past with other episodes, but again, just a little reminder of a metaverse is basically a virtual reality space in which users can interact with a computer-generated environment and with other users, actually. So it's more of interaction. It's more of like some form of lobby where people can actually do certain things. Okay. Now, now the important part here is that people are interacting. Okay, that's the key word. Is they are interacting in everything we do here in real life, but in a virtual reality space. Okay. Now, the current models that we have so far right now, that we see, or is they're out there. Of course, we have video games, we have blockchain games, we have virtual reality, augmented reality, and other forms of 2D interfaces. Okay, now this basically means that these applications are viewed through a screen, whether it's a computer mobile, with a computer screen, or a mobile device. So it usually lives on a 2D platform, okay, because you're looking at it, it's a screen, it's a 2D platform. However, the application itself may be a 3D rendered application. However, there is usually some kind of visual apparatus or some kind of hardware involved, especially when we talk about virtual reality. Uh, if you're familiar with the Oculus Rift, that is a visual apparatus or a visual device. Okay. Now, when, however, this doesn't mean because it's 2D, it doesn't mean that it's not considered metaverse. The key thing that makes metaverse an actual metaverse is the ability to interact with others and do some form of trade, barter or exchange of service, or some type of relation to those key concepts. It's the fact that you're exchanging information, just like how you would speak to a regular person in real life. You're actually doing that in the metaverse. Okay, so that is the key part of the metaverse and what makes it a metaverse. Now, the next question people kind of ask me, especially, I'm part of, being in the blockchain space in development for quite some time now, is that are users ready for the metaverse? Well, so I conducted a research online and found some data, and the worldwide data suggests that yes, a little bit around 51.9% of people globally are ready for it. The remaining percentage, people kind of have their reservations about it, like maybe it's not for me, maybe it's for someone else, or I don't care, basically. But a good majority of the world, or a good majority of half the world, is ready to take the leap into this metaverse. Okay. Now you have to understand, on on the planet Earth, there's about 7.7 billion people. Now at 51% who are ready, that's roughly about maybe 3.85 billion people who are ready to make that leap into a virtual reality space and conduct a specific portion of their life into the metaverse. So now let's get into the part of the show where we discuss a general overview of blockchain projects dealing with the metaverse. Okay. Now, before we go into this, what I want to illustrate, or at least kind of convey, is that I've been asked by several blockchain projects on ways to approach or give guidance to projects to help lead them into a direction that achieves a specific goal. Now, whatever that goal is, you have to understand no one blockchain metaverse project is the same. There's always some form of uniqueness to it. Okay. So the information being outlined in today's episode is more of a general guideline. Simply that. Okay. So now, when we talk about direction, especially for, well, you can actually apply this to any type of project that you do, really. But again, this is more for metaverse, NFT, blockchain. So one of the things is one of the first questions I ask is, okay, what does your project do, or what is the end result of the project? Okay. Then I follow it by what's in it for the users, because they're your customers. Okay. Then the next part is, what is the end goal for users who purchase the product or the service, again, in relationship to your metaverse or NFT or blockchain project. Okay. Now, let's just pause here for a minute, and let me just, if you can see my mouse, what I want to point out is there is data right now that is suggesting, when it comes to sciences and storing data onto the blockchain, utility tokens in a lot of the projects, because they deal with smart contract technology, um, are going to be more lucrative to investors versus non-utility based blockchain tokens. And we see this happening, especially with a lot of projects out there that are kind of like investment, where you would, provide actual valuable cryptocurrencies to a token that will hopefully go up in value. I won't say their name, but what I'm saying is, if your project is utility based, um, your project will have more viability, especially more appeal to a lot of users out there. Yeah. Okay. Now, the other part is determining target markets. Now, we'll get into this part a little bit more in depth later, but of course, determining your target markets. Okay. Again, this is part of direction. Where are you going to find them? How are you going to communicate with them? Usually, a lot of things are now online, especially when it comes to cryptocurrencies. You have and blockchain projects. You have social media, you have influencers and possible partnership groups with other communities. Then the bottom line really comes down to, increasing community size. Okay. All right. So with that being said, we talk about what's in it for the user. Okay. Now, I have two good case examples here, okay, that answer a few questions. What's in it for the user? Okay. Over here on the left, we see that in the data that a lot of the financial services offered in NFT or blockchain projects, they will, the data suggests, in terms of forecast into 2026, that the financial services within blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrencies is going to become at least a $27 billion industry. Convert that into pesos, that's a lot of money. One platform that did extremely well in the last bull cycle was Aave. It catered to the financial services, specifically more in the DeFi space, like your decentralized exchanges, your staking, things like that. And they saw an opportunity there for users to kind of have them either trade, stake, or do some kind of DeFi activity on the Aave blockchain and on the Aave platform. Okay. So what's in it for the users? Of course, Aave, because they're a financial service, they kind of act kind of like the aggregator, where they have the liquidity and they grab liquidity from other providers as well. And of course, basic arbitrage trading in a decentralized exchange type of way. And of course, staking. Let's move over here to Axie. Again, we're trying to ask the question, what's in it for the users? One thing Axie did right, okay, when we look at the data, what's in it for the users is simply this. In the data, it suggests that when it comes to people joining into a project, one of the main priorities for users, okay, was the ability for work possibilities. What Axie Infinity did right was that they created a scholarship program, which kind of helped augment users' ability to earn additional form of income by playing the game. And when they play the game, they get a token back. They can use that token for other things, or they can just sell it back to the market for some kind of profit. Okay. So there was some form of work possibility with Axie, and that was the one thing they did right. Okay. So, when we look at data, we can easily find gaps in the market. What's missing? How do we address that? These are the gaps that I'm talking about. And of course, those of you who are already in some form of industry understand what this means. We're trying to find opportunities here in the market that can easily find, ways to make your project more appealing for your growing community. So let's discuss possible markets. Okay, this is where we start getting into the nitty gritty of our project planning. Okay, now we have a lot of things to consider when we try to find our target markets. Now, again, in relationship to blockchain, metaverse, and NFT type of projects. Now, okay, So what we want to do is that we want to narrow it down. Okay. So there are tools out there that are free and there are tools out there that are paid. Okay. I suggest everyone to consider paid tools, as free tools have way too much limitation and won't get you the data you need to increase your numbers and find your target audience. A good example would be when I try to use free tools. Um, I do get some of the data that I need, but usually when it comes down to more specific data, um, this is where paid tools work the best. Okay. So, what I want to say to everybody is okay, you can use free tools, but if there is something in the budget for a paid tool, go for paid tools. In other words, measure twice, cut once. Okay. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about the free and paid tools in a bit, but with certain paid tools, we can actually narrow it down specifically down to country. Okay. Because what I want to mention to everyone, and this was one of the biggest questions being asked to me, was that, my project wants to go worldwide, things like that. And here's the thing, when it comes to marketing, SEO research, and all this other stuff about finding possible targets, there is no country in the world called worldwide, but there is worldwide data. Okay. And I'll get into what I mean when I say there is no country called worldwide, but there is worldwide data. Okay. And this is important for, especially if you're in the field of SEO, okay, or search engine optimization. Now, once we understand what tools that we're going to use, now we have to start using, we have to start finding the data and start filtering it. What it comes down to a lot of the times when I'm being asked these sort of things is, okay, how do we find the country, that is very interested in what product or services that our project does? Then from the country, okay, now we got to find associated media or social media accounts. Okay. And what tends to happen with social media accounts is that you'll find the main social media account of, let's say, another community, and then you have to find the community members. So the process is very long. It's very daunting. Okay. Next is age groups and demographics, male, female, age group between this age and this age. Then, of course, you have to understand, okay, if your project is going to do some ads, who's the type of market that is susceptible to ads, Last but not least, we kind of need to cover like the money trail. Where is the money pouring into for certain blockchain projects? So when you start doing research on other blockchain projects that were successful, you kind of want to see the money trail and see where that money was coming into. And again, like I said, you can only really find this through paid tools. Okay. Okay. So let's go here. Now let's talk about finding markets. Okay. Now, when we talk about finding markets, I've mentioned that there is free tools and that there is paid tools. I suggest to use for any project out there to use the paid tools. Okay. So remember, a lot of the stuff that we're doing right now is really a numbers game, period. It's a numbers game. Okay, when we look at, let's say, total available market, or how many users are part of this particular category of the market, numbers tend to adjust, but it is a numbers game in the end. So now, again, we're talking about metaverse, we're talking about NFT, we're talking about blockchain. Okay. So there are a few tools I've been working with in the past that kind of help narrow down the research. Now, because my time is limited on this show, I'll name the ones that I highly recommend and highly use for this type of research. Okay. So when it comes to data finding, this is what I mean by there is no such thing as a country called worldwide, but there is worldwide data. Statista, I found, and I've been using them for months already. Statista what I love about Statista, especially when you try to do market research, is that you get basically worldwide data. And then from the worldwide data, you can go down to a country specific approach, such as, okay, does this particular country have show in any interest? Things like that. Then, of course, Statista does provide user demographics. So when we talk about Statista, basically, they're really good at getting worldwide data and summarizing them for you. Or if you want regional data and demographics, things like that, it's really great for summarizing the data for you. However, the one problem is Statista is not really specific. They don't tell you names. They don't tell you specific things that you want to know. Okay. However, I do recommend Statista if you just want a general overview and summary data of a particular category. Again, NFTs, blockchains, cryptocurrencies. If you talk about DeFi, you'll find information. If you talk about Metaverse, you'll find information. If you're talking about which regions in the world are very susceptible to NFTs and are willing to buy in the next 12 months, Statista has that. So I do recommend Statista. Okay, so now we have SEMrush. One of the things I love about SEMrush, again, I'm talking about it being used as a paid tool, but you can also have a free account. They do allow that. But when you start going to the paid tier, you start to see a lot of really specific data, such as, SEO information data, which organic keywords are being used to help drive traffic, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Market data geographically, where are the backlinks coming from, which country, how much traffic is pouring in from that backlink. So the data goes on and on and on and on. Okay. And then last but not least, my favorite part is, traffic, search traffic, organic traffic. They basically summarize it for you in great detail. That's why I like using SEMrush, which also helps. And I'm telling you this, you, the audience, this is that it does really help in terms of locating basically the money trail, the money flow, and where the users are really coming from, especially if you're doing some kind of campaign marketing. So SEMrush is basically is a great tool. Now let's talk about free tools out there. Now, NFT Calendar isn't really a tool, but again, we're talking about NFT, blockchain, and Metaverse. When we talk about free tools, NFT Calendar is one of the best ones, because even though it's a website, you can actually click on a few of the projects that are upcoming, and it'll give you some information on who the community is, what their social media accounts are, and then from there, you'll have to kind of trace, connect the dots a bit, and if they are a viable community to onboard to your community or your project, then so be it. But this is one of the better free tools out there. Okay. Okay. Now, what we have here is basically Nansen AI. Now, this is specifically for NFTs. Okay. But again, like I said, you can't talk about Metaverse without talking about NFTs and blockchain. So Nansen.ai, again, the paid version, is a really good tool. Basically, it tells you basically the information of a project's total sale. Okay. Total sale. And what it basically says is if they were to release another project, you can kind of look at the history. You can look at the history of if that project was doing well with every collection that they released out to the market. Okay. Next is, when it comes to which blockchain is better, you have to understand that a lot of blockchain projects don't just release on one blockchain. Sometimes they release on multiple blockchains. So you will see, let's say, a blockchain project being released on Ethereum, maybe Polygon, and maybe on Binance Smart Chain. And the reason why is because they're trying to target specific users of that particular blockchain. Okay. Next is which project has a potential flip. So when we talk about NFTs, this is one of the best tools in terms of seeing where the window of opportunity is for, let's say, an upcoming NFT drop, and how long do you have before the hype runs down in where you cannot flip for profit anymore. So Nansen AI is one of the better tools. Okay, it's a bit pricey, but it will do the job for you. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. Now, the other thing I do want to cover basically now is, now you're going into marketing. So this is again another question I've been asked. And okay, so since I'm kind of in the same field, I do a lot of data analytics, things like that. What I'm tending to find out, especially with NFT and blockchain projects, is that Facebook seems to be the best go-between. Although people say that, oh yeah, a lot of the cryptocurrency talk is on Twitter, that's the talk. But in terms of presenting your project as a whole, Facebook seems to be the best go-between. Okay, followed by Instagram, followed by LinkedIn. These are your top 3 social media platforms. Okay, now I can go a little bit further into this to discuss why Facebook is the best go-between. Because when you look at, let's say, platforms like Twitter, you can only tweet so many characters. Yeah, I think it's like less than 128 characters now, somewhere along those lines. But when we look at, let's say, Facebook, you can actually, I've done it myself. You can write blogs and articles, and it will post. But the thing is, one thing that Facebook does right is that it allows for static posts, videos, links, things like that to be posted on Facebook, while Twitter is a little bit limited. You can do the posting of links, things like that, but Twitter is more of a conversational piece when you want to engage the community and let it be known that you're engaging. Facebook is kind of like Twitter, but in terms of if you're going to do static posts, video posts, whatever post, Facebook is better at it than Twitter. Then, of course, you have benefits coming in from LinkedIn and Instagram as well. We'll talk about Instagram in a few slides. Now, the other question that I've been asked is, what about influencers? Again, let's take away from the equation right now. We're talking about NFTs, Metaverse right now. When it comes to influencers, what we do see in the data right now is that if you're using an influencer for some kind of marketing campaign, Instagram and Facebook is by far your best bet in terms of reach, I guess. But in terms of the actual influencer, of course, you have to do your own research. But in terms of the platform itself, Instagram and YouTube seem to be working pretty well. However, the data suggests that in 2021, those platforms are decreasing by influencers, but we are seeing an increase in the usage of Instagram, especially with influencer related campaigns with a particular project. Yeah. Hold on for a bit. Okay, so let's talk about money trail. One of the things about data is that, we want to we have to find the money trail. And the thing is, the money trail can come from a lot of things such as demand. So again, let's bring back into the equation, blockchain, NFT, and metaverse. What do people want to experience on the metaverse? Well, data suggests that people love tours, such as museums or art tours. They also want to experience music concerts. They want to experience classes, fun things. What about a zoo tour or a safari? Theater, opera, performances, travel, fitness class. So this is one particular data set. Okay. Now we take the same exact data set and then we try to confirm that data with another data set that supports the first data set. And then what we find out is that there's a lot of things that emerge as patterns. And then with some demographic data, we can kind of hone in on who our target audience is. Again, we see that, yes, both data say that virtual concerts, music artists, things like that, that's big. International travel, museums was on the list. So the data confirms from the previous data set. Yeah. So there's a lot of things to do when it comes to data. But before we move forward, how about this? We'll take a break and we'll come back. Once we come back, we'll go into the metaverse. All right, guys.
Hi, this is Rene Sagaran, pioneer member and choreographer of the Metaverse and creator of Hatao Fitness. I would like to invite everyone to please support our fundraising event entitled The Crossroads Dance Movers for the Love 90s Dance Concert. This will be on October 8th, Saturday, 5 p.m. at the Crossroads Center. Part of the proceeds of this event will go to Jeffrey Carmelo C. De Castro. For inquiries, please try to directly message me on my Facebook.
Juan Lu and his puppets face to face with special guests Makata Tawanan, Jess Box, and the Lunaria Marionette Show.
Salita. Alam mo, Tito Ando, kung wala ako, magsasalita ka mag-isa. Kung wala ako, wala kang masusuot. Kung wala ako, wala kang nakakain.
November 13, Sunday, 7 p.m. at the La Verdad Auditorium in Apalit, Pampanga. Buy your tickets now and see you soon, face to face.
Welcome back. I'm Joseph Sylvester, and you're still watching Metaverse Breaking the Fourth Wall. The new channel is an online, alternative new media platform of online shows for people on the go. Please watch all our shows as seen on screen. Imagine having your own show, your own playlist, your own content, but we make it easier for you. TNC aims to transform the lives of our viewers through engaging, authentic, and original content. Our channel is a responsible, global, 24/7 platform that showcases Filipino talent, global influencers, cultural intelligence, and ingenuity. You can watch live or on replay via Facebook or YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Just search hashtag TNC Now. For sponsorships, please email now@thenewchannel.com or send us a DM. Enjoy these life-changing shows because we made them for you. All right, so welcome back. Okay, so if we can share my screen one more time. Okay. We're going to quickly get into the metaverse really soon. Okay, so here we go. So what I want to kind of just summarize before the break is that we want to lead a lot of our projects with data first. Again, measure twice, cut once. So again, we were talking about data sets, and when we look at several data sets, we start to see patterns emerge. So the first data set compared to the first data set compared with the second data set, when things start to compare, we start to see patterns emerge. So again, we have to kind of look at data in a way as a way of measuring several times, because when we look at projects, of course, money is involved, things like that. You want to make sure that whatever money you're spending from your blockchain project goes to the right hands or in the right direction towards your goal. Okay, so like my guy here from Rick and Morty, Rick Sanchez, he says it the best. But again, measure twice, cut once. Okay, now this is the time where we start entering the metaverse. So I'm going to quickly load that up. But before we get into the metaverse, I'm loading it up right now. Basically, what I want to talk about is this. When we talk about the metaverse, when we talk about total available market or opportunity expansion, what we do see in the data is that every time the market shifts by, let's say, X percentage, whether it be 15, 17, 19%, the opportunity, or let's say the max expansion rate, let's say in terms of total available market, can increase up to 50%. We start to see higher numbers every time we see shifts in the economy go into the metaverse. So what we're looking at in terms of the data here is that in terms of the money flowing into any form of the metaverse, we're looking at about close to, again, it's not the actual number, but the potential is that we're looking at the metaverse as a $12 trillion economy. Okay. Now, hopefully you can see the slide, and I'll explain this a little bit more. I think my metaverse is ready to go. So what I want to quickly summarize is this, and we'll discuss it a little bit more, is that when it comes to business sectors entering the metaverse, it starts to make sense why you would provide certain services or why services enter it. Currently, right now, we see a lot of computer-related sectors entering the metaverse: education, finance, marketing and advertising, medical and health. Okay, so I'll explain this a little bit more now in detail while in my metaverse. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, and I want to bring up the metaverse in just a bit. Okay, let me just bring this up. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, so now, while my metaverse is loading up, here we go. I'm about to share my screen. Yeah. Um, Here we go. Present. Ooh. Okay. Well, let this load up first, and I'll just present the data. Okay, here we go. Metaverse is now loaded. We're going to hit this, and then I can share my screen. Sorry, guys, for the wait, but this is a very intensive show today. Extremely intensive. Here we go. Metaverse, share screen. Okay. So now if we can share my metaverse that I created. Okay. Hopefully it's not too laggy. Okay, so this is the metaverse that I created. So let's just use this metaverse, which I call the Sliderverse, to kind of illustrate what I'm trying to say. So, oh, sorry. Oh, no. Okay. Hopefully, there we go. So when we look at the metaverse, we're looking at several factors here, okay? So we discussed about computers and IT, okay? So one thing that's emerging right now is the migration of, or the symbioticness of Web 2.0 and 3.0, but there's also shift from 2.0 to 3.0 as well. So what does that mean? Well, Web 3.0 does allow for a lot of things that Web 2.0 cannot do, especially when it comes to blockchain. Okay. Now, things, certain elements of Web 3.0 are being conducted online as we speak. So, for example, if you play blockchain games, you notice that it's usually online. You're usually using a extension like MetaMask to interact with your DApp. But now, let's go one step further and include the metaverse now, where all the transactions take place literally within a virtual reality environment. Okay, so when we talk about computers and IT, there are companies out there, big names as well, that are setting up literally servers, clusters of servers around the world, because you have to understand that blockchain is decentralized. So it's not centralized where it's one server in one specific location of the globe. There's cluster nodes everywhere, or servers everywhere, handling blockchain specific type of applications. Yeah. So on top of that, the second thing on the data was that we're looking at education. Okay. Education in terms of metaverse, blockchain, and all that, it's happening all online. But now, again, we go one step further and we discuss metaverse. Unfortunately, I couldn't rig teachers and students online raising their hands in time for the show, but consider this. If you were going to use the metaverse, it would be in an environment like a school environment, kind of like this, where there's, let's say, an instructor, maybe some computers that you can interact with, fun little activities for new learners to do in the metaverse, so that way they can better understand how to interact with it and with other people as well. Okay, so my screen's a bit shaky here because I'm using up a lot of CPU resources. Okay, so what you're going to notice in the metaverse, and you notice this right now, is that when we talk about the metaverse, there is data suggesting that in terms of marketing and advertisements, like, okay, this is kind of a rough sketch of a billboard ad, but you kind of understand the concept. Unfortunately, I can't use brand names in this episode, but I think this is safe if I, post today's poster of the episode. But imagine, let's say, you have an actual shop in the real world. Okay, so let's say some shop that sells donuts in the real world. I can't mention their names, but imagine marketing that onto the metaverse. Okay. What about if you're a real estate company? That's another thing. Marketing is going to be very huge here. So if you start to do real estate, okay, so I just created this generic real estate thing. And let's say you want to sell a house, okay, on the metaverse. Wouldn't it be nice that somebody out there says, hey, you know what, I'm interested. Is there a virtual property tour? Here's your answer. It's the metaverse, really. I mean, we understand that there are staging services or things like 360 virtual tours, but that's limited. Um, that's kind of limiting to users out there, you know. So again, you can do metaverse with real estate. You can do metaverse in a whole bunch of other things as well. So again, let's say you're in the business. Again, we're still talking about real estate here, but what I'm trying to say is this: the metaverse becomes a real helpful tool in terms of, let's say, if you're selling units or apartment condos and people want to check it out. Although I wouldn't use this method because I'm using Unreal Engine, but those of you who use AutoCAD or other engineering software tools and do 3D rendering for houses and things like that, again, you can place your work onto a metaverse type of platform. Okay, but again, I'm using Unreal Engine today. Yeah. Okay. So that kind of covers a lot of things. Now let's talk about DeFi for a minute. So can DeFi be used into the metaverse? The answer is yes. Okay. DeFi can actually be used in the metaverse. So for example, just like in any game out there, basically, you know, um, if you open up, let's say, a chest here, if you open up a chest, you'll probably find something. And that something can be in the form of an NFT. And that NFT could have utility, such as you can use that NFT to stake, you can use that NFT to, let's say, breed monsters, breed whatever. You're going to create more stuff with the objects that you find on the metaverse. So kind of like crafting. Yeah. So again, we can do a lot of things within the metaverse, and we're not limited to just, okay, it's just NFTs, we shoot and kill monsters, but we can do a lot of things. For example, here's a good example. Hospitals. Okay, now this is more pertaining to like blockchain and it's more to blockchain, but in terms of projects out there that deal with it, we're talking about patient records, things like that. It's all doable, especially when you're dealing with smart contract technology. Okay, but in terms of, let's say, if you convert your hospital into some form of metaverse application and you hold the records of your patients within that metaverse, the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do. But of course, there's some issues with the data, because you're dealing with patient data. Next up is, let's say, construction. Construction is going to be very huge because a lot of the things that we do in construction is the fact that you're presenting an idea that hasn't been completed yet. But with the metaverse, along with your team of engineers who work with AutoCAD, they can design something kind of in a 3D render and present it in a way where you can put it into a virtual reality space, have moving cars, moving people, things like that. If you worked with software like Lumion, that would be the closest thing. But Lumion is only, it does some AutoCAD things, but it's not really a 3D interactable environment, but it is a 3D application. Again, Metaverse, what makes it work for a lot of people is that we can take our 3D work, incorporate it into a metaverse type of application, and then we can interact with it like what I'm doing now. So let's say this is a construction site for this building over here. Okay, so I understand the concept that this is what the end result will be in an area like this. Okay. All right, now let's move on. Now we can start taking this a little bit further down the road, such as, let's say you want to open up, let's say, your own kiosk stand in a particular part of town or a particular part of the city. So, it starts to make sense why you would use the metaverse as a way to simulate first what the end result would be before you start pouring money into an investment. Okay, hopefully everyone's catching on to what I'm saying here. Everything in the metaverse, even though, like I said, it is a simulation, you can do a lot of things in here. Okay, again, interaction, bartering, trading, things like that. Okay, now we get into the concept of art and fashion. Okay, this again, it comes down to the concept that, hey, look, if you're a fashion designer, I know you're using 3D tools to kind of help render whatever you're creating in terms of art, fashion, and things like that. So the metaverse is the perfect place to showcase an upcoming project lineup, let's say, or clothing lineup. Okay. And then people start to get interested. So this is where we start building the hype. Okay. Now, of course, you have your website. But the thing is, when it comes to the metaverse, so if you see my character here, this guy right here, you know, let him say hi. Yeah, see, he says hi. You know, this character can actually probably, you know, again, this character is an avatar. It could represent you. Let's say if you like a certain thing, you can actually, you know, equip it, wear it on your avatar. And then you start to think to yourself, okay, if it looks good on my avatar and the avatar represents me, I think I'm going to like, you know, buying this particular clothing lineup. So it's a pretty cool concept. Okay. Next is travel. Travel is going to be it's one of the most demanding things about the metaverse. So over here, I have a futuristic version of the Eiffel Tower. Okay. Now, even though it's not really a depiction of the Eiffel Tower, I'm just saying that it is for now. So just please use your imagination. So in terms of travel, a lot of people, you know, depending on what part of the world you're from, you know, people want to experience travel from going to another place, but sometimes they are limited to do so because of the nature of where they live in the world. Let's say it like that. But wouldn't it be nice to actually like visit, let's say, France in some kind of metaverse or some interpretation of France, you know? So travel and experience is going to be one of the huge factors here. So again, like I said, you can do a lot of things on the metaverse. Okay. One of the spicier issues when we talk about the metaverse, I get this a lot, man. Like seriously. So we're talking about, of course, anybody who's followed Call of Duty, um, I don't know, Counter Strike, all these first-person shooter games, you know, the war type games. Of course, there are games out there that kind of act like the metaverse, but are just basically lobbies to run, gun, and shoot each other. But one of the things that I'm finding through my own experience about, and defense is actually part of the data for the metaverse, is that when it comes to war planning, this is by far the best type of way to do like strategic planning, especially through simulations, is through the metaverse. This is actually one of the weirdest things that I've found, but it starts to make sense once you start to design war-like scenarios. So metaverse and defense, or we can call it war-related activities. The metaverse is actually a great way to simulate certain scenarios. Okay. Um, but yeah, then of course you have things like, okay, you know, futuristic travels. I have a bunch of aircraft carriers here. They don't do much. They're just there for looks. But what I'm saying is, when we look at the metaverse, okay, um, let me just let me just get out of here for a while. Give me a second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to share another slide. So give me a second here, guys. Let me just get this out of the way. Now let me share this screen, this one here. Okay, so if we can share this screen now. Okay, so when we look at, so we were discussing which business sectors were entering, you know, the NFT and the metaverse. We see a lot of information that says, hey, there is a lot of potential for these industries to enter, potential markets, potential customers, things like this. Okay, so again, like I was saying earlier, what we want to do is we want to use data to filter down who we want to onboard, who we want to bring in, who are the best sectors to link up with. Yeah. So when we talk about metaverse, or in of course blockchain in general as well, we can include that into the equation, is that we see that there is an importance when it comes to having blockchain, and we can also include metaverse in there, as it's becoming very important to integrate it with our business now. Okay. There was a lot of hesitation in the past that including blockchain technologies, or even if you want to say metaverse, like it was too young, it's too new. But once we start seeing the potential and the money flows into these markets, what we start to understand is it's becoming important. Right now the data is suggesting that blockchain, in businesses is reaching a 50%, 57% threshold of being important. But notice how 29%, it's saying, no, it's very important now. That 29% sees the future because even though it's not taking place now, they know that eventually this data will shift to it's very important to have blockchain in your business. Okay. Okay, so one of the things, here's what we're talking about money trail, and this is what I'm saying about Statista and like finding, let's say, region specific data. So again, what we want to do is, again, we want to measure twice, cut once. Now, I'm not saying this information is the end all be all. It's not. Okay. I've kind of blocked out a few portions of this content just to kind of just give way to saying, remember, this episode and the information being presented is just a general overview. But what we can do with actual data when we find that data is that we can start now filtering it down to country. What we're looking for right now, let's say, is who or which potential countries want to invest in NFTs in the next 12 months. Okay, let's say that the data that we're seeing right now is the potential data. Blue being there's a high interest that this particular country wants to buy NFTs, while the black part of the bar is like not sure or not interested. So as we keep going down the list, when we find data, is that we start to see countries and see their interest. Once we see this kind of data, like I said previously, we want to use other data to kind of coincide or support the data and find patterns that emerge. So hopefully those of you who are in blockchain projects, you start to understand that by leading your project with data, you save yourself a lot of time and headache. Okay. Is this okay? Now, I think with that being said, let me just stop the screen sharing and then let me share this one last time. Give me a second here, guys. Okay. Yeah, let me share this one last time. Okay. If we can just share my screen just really quickly. Okay, so we're back in the metaverse. So again, let me just do a little recap because we have a few more minutes is that, again, when we look at how the metaverse can be transformed, it doesn't have to be one huge world. It can actually be a niche market. But when we talk about the metaverse and things that we can do, I've already discussed, we can do fashion, we can do food industry, we can do marketing. You can actually do hotels if you want. Market out your hotels onto the metaverse. Again, it's the same concept as what I was discussing with real estate. People want to view, people want to kind of engage with what they're potentially going to pour their money into. Okay. So that's what the metaverse does. It gives that visual expectation or that visual perspective for other users to experience what products or services you're planning to provide or what you have already, but unfortunately, they're not there physically. Okay. And our avatars are basically the ones that are doing the work for us. Of course, we control them. But the idea here is that through the metaverse, there is a representation of us that does what we do in the real world in a virtual world. Anyway, that is my presentation, Metaverse Breaking the Fourth Wall. And thank you so much for joining today's episode. Hopefully we'll see you for the next one. But other than that, my name is Joseph Sylvester, and thank you. And this is Metaverse Breaking the Fourth Wall. So thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.